And welcome to the Tom Clark Weekly Speed Report. I'm your host, Tom Clark, along with co-hosts Corey Carroll and Colton Jacobs, here to bring you weekly insight on all things NASCAR, with a review of past week's races and a preview of upcoming events on the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series schedule. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at TCW Speed Report, email us your questions at tcwspeedreport@gmail.com, and check out the newly updated Tom Clark Weekly Speed Report Facebook page. And I would like to welcome my co-hosts for the evening, Corey Carroll and Colton Jacobs. How are you guys this evening?
We're doing good, Tom.
Doing all right.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, happy to be back on.
We're happy to be back on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
This is our second consecutive week that nothing has plagued us.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to talk about the most recent Sprint Cup Series race at Kansas Speedway, the SpongeBob SquarePants 400. Pole sitter was Joey Logano. Probably not a surprise there. It was his fourth pole of the year. We saw the race, go under the green flag. Went pretty normal, I guess you could say. But they were pretty sure that weather was coming and it was going to happen. And that kind of changed the way some of the strategies went out and how hard they raced, especially early there in the go.
Yeah, I'm getting sick of the whole weather factor. It seems like just about every week we're having to talk about weather and rain and is the race gonna get in, but I applaud NASCAR for getting it in last night. I was really pleased with that.
Yeah, that it was a good thing to see that Air Titan system coming into play. That I guess is the Air Titan system version 2.0. They got the track dried within at least 2 hours.
What'd they change from 1.0?
I think 1.0 they actually had tractor trailers with flatbed trailers with the actual Air Titan systems on them, with vacuum suckers on the apron of the track to suck up the rest of the water. But I think version 2.0, they've actually figured out we should probably put this on the back of a pickup truck, save a lot of time, effort, and money.
Yeah.
So.
Oh well, I'll give a shout out to DW because he said what I think we've all been thinking for years. He finally started talking about tracks needing tarps, and I was just so happy to hear somebody finally say that has a voice, like an actual voice in NASCAR, instead of somebody who doesn't.
I was a little bit scratching my head at that. Tarps on a racetrack.
Think about it. It's plausible, don't you think?
Maybe at the short tracks.
For sure.
I don't think it's plausible at anything over a mile. That's a lot of tarp.
That's a big blanket.
I mean, because you see the big tarp they have at baseball, that's enough to cover a diamond. It doesn't even go over the outfield. It's just, and those are huge tarps, just enough to cover the diamond. So we're talking covering, like a mile and a half racetrack. That's a lot. That's too much.
Yeah, I mean, if you factor in the length of the track and the width of the track, I thought it was another example of Darrell just talking out of his rear end.
I am in full support of the tarps.
Oh, okay. Prior to the red flag for rain, we saw the usual suspects, Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch of Stewart Haas Racing, but our I guess you could say underdog, Martin Truex Jr. I think we saw Kevin Harvick get loose off of 4 coming to the Tri-Oval, and Truex Jr. took the lead before the rain and really didn't, it wasn't a fluke. I mean, he got the lead and stayed out for quite a bit, had a good lead going into the red flag.
His car was so good, I almost wonder, it's almost a mystery to me as to why he lost the race, or, didn't win the race. Yeah. I mean, this is just a rocket. He flew by Kevin Harvick like he was parked on pit road. And how many times have we seen that this year?
0. Just
if you have a car that fast, if you have a car that fast, you got to win.
And that's what I mean. It surely looked like that. Certainly, you had the red flag like we said, 2 hours. Washed the rubber away off the track. We saw also prior to the red flag, mistake by Joey Logano's pit crew, had one man over the wall too soon, and that sent him back. Came up through the field, and then after the red flag, a couple of cautions. We saw, I believe, Matt Kenseth spin out a flat tire, and the second mishap on Joey Logano's pit crew's part was I think they brought him down pit road, and pit road was still closed.
Yeah, the 22 team just in general couldn't keep it together on pit road, and I think Jamie Little said that he ended up passing like 55 some cars last night.
Yeah, in total, I think Larry Mac's figure was like 1,000.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but then again, it's Larry Mac. We saw Mark Truex Jr. Through the pit cycles, stay out front. There was a point in the race where another caution came out, and some guys elected to stay out or take two. The first one comes to mind is, I think, Brad Keselowski, and he got out there in clean air and was able to hold the lead for a good while. Carl Edwards found out quick that was not a good idea. Went from third to, I think, 24th in a matter of 4 or 5 laps.
Well, one thing I noticed about this race in general, I mean, you had Truex, like Corey said, who just had a rocket ship. But you had Truex with just a really fast car, but you had some other people take the lead and run up front, like Logano and Harvick and Jimmy and Kurt Busch and guys like that. And I just really enjoyed there being a race where you weren't quite sure who was going to win it. You know, usually it's like, okay, Harvick's got this in the bag, or Jim, they're leading all the laps. But this race, it wasn't quite like that. It was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, because certainly throughout last night, I was thinking to myself, I said, Corey's theory that we're trying to make into a law of physics. And the way you make laws of physics is that you take a theory and you test it. And ultimately, the theory still stands.
Yeah, the theory won out last night. The
theory won out again. And so we've experimented it again, and the results are that one of those 4 cars won on a track a mile or more in length. That was not a plate track. So saw some different pit strategies going on. Like I said, at one point, 3 of the Hendrick cars, Casey Kane, Jimmie Johnson, and Jeff Gordon, were in trouble of going a lap down.
Dale Jr. actually went a lap down. For some reason, that just doesn't stick out. It was right when you were talking about, and they were all about, but he had just gone a lap down, and he got the lucky dog.
Okay. So as we move forward in the race, like I said, that pit strategy that occurred, I think some of those guys took 2 and stayed out. That allowed some of those back runners to actually stay up front. And we saw Jeff Gordon running up as high as 3rd and actually racing Kyle Larson. But I do want to give a shout out. There we go again. A shout out to Erik Jones. He did a phenomenal job.
What was it Larry Mac said when he finally wrecked or whatever? He was like, he was the show tonight. I mean, really, I don't quite agree with that, but he impressed everyone. Mike Joy said that he's not easily impressed, but he was impressed. And I heard...
Was it not impressive that Jamie McMurray won his 2nd start ever? Or that Trevor Bayne won in his first start ever, which was the Daytona 500? Yeah. Is that not impressive? No, he ran 3rd and crashed into the wall. That's so impressive.
Because when they were showing what one of the bumper cams when he wrecked, and they got so torn up about it.
Oh man!
That's exactly the way it was.
Shucks.
I mean, I could hear Bill Elliott right now. Well, he's not as good as Chase, but he certainly did a good job trying to keep that car off the wall. And but hats off to Chase. I wish he was starting this race because I think he'd put that Napa. Hey, did you hear that Napa signed Chase to a full sponsorship for 2016? in the 24 car. So I'm really proud of Chase, and but the thing of it is, that's out for the fans because they really like to eat that up. So yeah, we saw Erik Jones in a weirdly painted M&M's car, had red M&M's.
Yeah, I mean he did. I mean he did do a good job. He ran a good race. And I may jump off of a building if I hear them when they talk about Larson do that Larson thing from the commercial. They do. I
might be right behind you.
They do it every time now, and I'm like, Larson ran a good race. I mean, he finished like 16th or something, but he was up front. But I'm tired of hearing Larson.
Yeah, I think it's the way the booth tries to stay relevant with the kids these days. Certainly Larson had a good run, but to me, he like Smokey Unick said about Tony Stewart a long time ago, cocky and got talent running out of both ears. Yeah, he's a talented guy, but
he's not as cocky as Tony was.
Not as cocky, but like, when it comes to actually running a race and strategizing, he went from racing midget cars in the dirt to a cup ride in like no time. Corey, you seem like you were chomping at the bit there.
No, you don't want me to say what I want to say.
Okay.
As sick as Colton is about hearing Larson, that's as sick as I am about hearing him. Period. I mean,
understandable.
Like, how do you not let? But how? And I guess maybe in his defense a little bit, how do you not let that hype go to your head when so many people are talking about how great you are before you've even done anything? I mean, you challenge Kyle Busch for a nationwide win at Bristol one time, and you're the next great thing. And Jeff Gordon says a few kind words about you, and it's the next big thing. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like Denny Hamlin. Let's look at Denny Hamlin and Ryan Newman and Jimmie Johnson, or as quote Larry Mac. Tom, when I think about Jimmie Johnson and Ryan Newman and Denny Hamlin, and when I think about their rookie seasons, you have to look at how successful they were. And when I think about how successful they were, it makes me think that when I think about Larson, he's not that good.
Well, Larry, Corey, trends say that the next 5 rookies to come up in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, we're going to talk about like they've come the second coming of the Lord. KFC.
Larry pulled out Hungry Hounds last night.
Well, I heard it again.
Well, as Daryl would say, that's right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Everything's in somebody's wheelhouse these days.
Well, I don't know about you. I live in what you would call a house. Dogs have houses. Plants have houses, greenhouses. But I've never heard of anybody building a house for a wheel.
I don't. That's a baseball term originally. I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
But I don't know what a wheelhouse is either. So
maybe it's the housing for the wheel. Something called.
Stop guessing.
Stop guessing. So as we move forward, a couple late race cautions and lead changes. We saw where I think three or four guys stayed out towards that last pit stop. They'd been out long enough to where tires were kind of going to be a necessity.
You're talking about the very last one?
Towards the end of the race. I think we actually saw for the life of me I can't remember, but somebody took fuel only towards the
if we're talking about the very last pit stop,
we're not talking about the very last one.
I'm talking about towards the end of the race.
Okay.
Towards the end of the race.
Okay.
Somebody took fuel only, tried to gain track position. Kevin Harvick did come down pit road along with Truex Jr. and Kurt Busch, and that kind of evened the field as the booth pointed out, to where the guys up front are going to have a hard time holding those guys back. We saw a couple of dive bomb attempts on some restarts. Those restarts were absolutely insane.
Well, I can't. Who was it? It's Stenhouse and Boyer. I mean,
They were practicing. They were seeing if they could still run on dirt or not.
No, they were doing their best Danica impression.
I mean, that was a pretty good. I mean, Boyer and Reagan both had pretty good saves last night.
And Jimmy, did you see Jimmy's? At the beginning?
And Jimmy's. I mean, those were all spectacular saves.
You know who didn't save it?
Who?
Erik Jones.
No, man, he
dropped an M&M.
I guess
He looked down into his lap, and when he looked,
I mean,
up,
his car just snapped. I mean, it was straight. It was just like wham.
Well, and talking about those crazy restarts, I don't know. You know, this particular incident I'm talking about, I think I would lay more blame on Kurt Busch than anybody else. But the 4 wide off the corner, I mean, that it's one of those things where that's not going to hurt him. It's just going to hurt everybody who's trying to pass. And of course, it squeezed Dale into Denny. It squeezed Denny into Sam Hornish Jr. And then, a lap later, well, even after Denny got his tire, I guess I don't know if it was a separate incident or if it was related to that, and he still had a tire rub, but he lost it down the straightaway as well. He just snapped loose.
Yeah.
It's just like Erik Jones did earlier in the race.
When speaking of that, Denny Hamlin did sound, like he wanted to blame it on Junior, but obviously, like you said, we saw the onboards and things like that. Is obviously Kurt Busch making it 4 wide, and also Denny Hamlin was pretty upset that he hit the wall, bounced off it a couple times, and by the time he was facing cars coming at him at 200 miles an hour, they decided to throw the caution.
Yeah, they pointed out this is the second week in a row that
a Gibbs driver.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, both Gibbs that they've been unhappy at the lack of caution. I mean, last week they didn't even throw the caution, so
just let him wreck.
But what Denny said, he hated seeing him coming at him 200 miles an hour when he was.
They were getting close. I don't think they were 200 miles an hour, but
I think Denny was just mad.
So. Speaking of, in those we're still on the topic of crazy restarts. I don't know who got into who. I think it was Michael McDowell or even Josh Wise. Somebody got into somebody, stacked the field up, and everyone was slowing down. And here comes the 34 car of Matt DiBenedetto.
No, Moffitt.
Brett Moffitt. Sorry, excuse me. It's just you could kind of see Tony get a little mad. He revved his engine and stuff like that. But it was just at the edge of the shot. But here's everyone slowing down. Tony Stewart, and then bam, out of nowhere, Moffitt is just running full speed into the back of Tony Stewart.
Yeah, Tony can't catch a break.
When was this? I missed this.
It was right after the red flag, I believe.
Yeah, it was after the delay.
It was one of those.
It was on the David Reagan spin.
Yeah, I mean, it was just out of shot, but you could see it, and then Tony was like running him down and stuff like. It's like when I play NASCAR Racing 2003 when the AI cars don't slow down when there's nothing but a wall of cars.
They don't do that on any NASCAR games.
Yeah. Well,
there's not been a good NASCAR game in a long time.
When I used to do NASCAR 2003, I used to go into the mods and change them.
Did you do the paintball setting thing?
No, I didn't do the paintballs, but I took the restrictor plates off the cars at Talladega. And so I would intentionally wait on the apron and let them get up to about 2 or 3 laps up to speed. And then just drive my car into oncoming traffic.
I've done that before.
Just to go on the other onboards to see what would you think, But we saw, like we said, towards the end of the race had some different scenarios happen. Ultimately, they restarted the race with 6 laps to go. We had some front runners, I guess you could say, especially with Harvick. And for my money, especially Junior, starting on the inside. I thought that I said, man, this will be great if he ran up right beside Jimmy down into turn 1, and of course Jimmie Johnson found that golden horseshoe again, and basically ran away with those last 6 laps. winning the SpongeBob SquarePants 400. And so we've given a summary of the race. Let's just take a little bit more detailed look at the results. Jimmie Johnson winning the race, led only 10 laps of the 267 of them, I believe. Kevin Harvick, no surprise there, leading 53 laps. Joey Logano led 29, starting from the pole, of course. Brad Keselowski leading 43. And again, Martin Truex Jr., that was finishing ninth. It's a wonder why he lost the race. They talked about during the rain delay how when he drove for MWR, I think he had 2 second-place finishes, or one where he led so much and towards the end he didn't keep up with the changes of the track. So it's certainly a heartbreak. I was excited to see if he was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, announce this on the Tom Clark Weekly Speed Report. Martin Truex has my support in the fan vote for the NASCAR Sprint All-Star race.
Yeah, I could go for that.
If he doesn't win in the showdown.
Which, I'll wait till we get into the preview to give you my qualms about All-Star race weekend. But just one thing I want to point out about the standings here while we're looking at them. I'm going to go back to, you look at the column of the laps led, and there's not a single, triple-digit number. There's multiple people. You got, a 53, 29, 43, 20, 95. It was very evened out between lots of drivers. I thought that made for a lot better racing. And I thought the racing was a lot better after the delay. It was very boring, I felt, personally, and before the delay, but I think it really picked up and turned into a better race.
I think with the track washing out, that probably gave everybody mentally a fresh slate, that everyone could go after it hard and try to see if there was anything else they could do to their cars, or at least try to stay ahead of the changing track conditions.
Yeah. Who heard Ryan Newman get so upset? I think it was Michael McDowell. He told his spotter to go punch McDowell's spotter in the face.
I remember him getting upset, but who did? I think Darrell said, that Ryan Newman is one hard guy to pass. He won't give you an inch.
No,
I think he pinned Jimmie Johnson down to the low side.
Yeah.
Well, not getting past is right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that big head getting in the way, probably. So we reviewed the SpongeBob SquarePants 400 at Kansas Speedway, and we're going to preview the NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race. And I shall begin. It's kind of hard to predict the All-Star Race. I do want to say this, because I've said it to myself in my head, and you guys now are my audience, that I can tell somebody, and people that are listening I can tell. Every major league sport has their all-star event. You got the NBA All-Star Game. You've got the Pro Bowl at the end of the NFL season. I'm sure hockey's got one.
Yeah, they have an
baseball. All-Star. And from what I can gather, and it's probably pretty already known that Tom Clark is not a fan of any other type of sport, and NASCAR is my sport. But when it comes to all-star events, it seems to me that the rest of the stick and ball sports it's just a list of all-stars. In a perfect world, this would be your team, and they just kind of do it, lazily and for fun. So outrageous scoring, outrageous, points,
lack of defense,
things like that. Where I will defend our sport of stock car auto racing, that in the Sprint All-Star Race, formerly known as the Winston, other names in the past, they put up enough money for the winner that they can't win in a single race at one time throughout the rest of the season. To me, that's like putting the rabbit at the Greyhound track. You're going to get everyone to be on their game. No holds barred, just going after that $1 million. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're millionaires, but they win over that over a course of a season. You get one chance one night to go after 1 million large.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to all-star events, I think the NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race is the most legitimate all-star event. Agreed?
I guess. I mean, it's certainly unique. Now there's advantages to winning your all-star game in other sports, like whichever league wins the all-star game in baseball gets home field advantage in the World Series.
I did not know that.
But it's not $1 million, you know, and so that's what makes it exciting. The fact in all the other sports they play a full game. Here it's short segments, which makes it more intense.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't watch other sports so much that I didn't even know any of those things you said about baseball.
Well, that's just unique to baseball. Basketball and hockey's and football's. The NFL's all-star event's the biggest joke, if you ask me. But.
And I will agree with that. And I don't even watch it.
Okay.
So, but as we approach the All-Star event at Charlotte, let's take a look at the point standings and kind of get a quarter-way review of where people are so far in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series standings. So from top to bottom, we have Jimmie Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Brad Keselowski, Matt Kenseth, Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Jamie McMurray, Jeff Gordon, Casey Kane, Eric Almirola, Paul Menard, Ryan Newman, and in 16th place, Clint Boyer.
I was really hoping, when I looked down, I was really hoping Danica was in 16th, so you would have had to say it. But
and as we can see, the winners so far in the series are pretty much, from 8th on up. Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch, Kenseth, Keselowski Jr., and Logano each having one win each. Jimmie Johnson leads the field so far with 3 wins, all on 1.5 tracks. Kevin Harvick's just below him with 2 wins. And you it's kind of like 1 and 2 are pretty much set in place, and then the rest are kind of almost on a who can get in, who can stay in, because we've seen my favorite driver in a unperfect world, Danica Patrick, slip in and out of 16th throughout the weeks.
Well, I'm loving seeing the 9th through 16th. You got a lot of guys in there maybe you weren't expecting, like Truex and McMurray, Almirola, Menard, people like that. And I really don't think we're going to have 16 winners. I think there's going to be more. But I'm just saying right now, Truex is going to get him a win this year before the chase.
You think there's going to be more than 16 winners?
No, I don't think there is. I said I don't think there's going to be more than 16 winners.
As Darrell Waltrip put it, he believes that Truex Jr. will point his way in.
I don't. I think he's going to get a W.
That means win, right?
Yep.
Yes. As of right now, yeah.
Yeah, it's sporting slang.
Sorry. Get dirty mind, Tom. Get out of there. So that's the updated standings. There's really not a whole, like I said, there's really not a whole lot going on from, with the exception of Truex, running good, running in the top 10 in points. Obviously the way we're looking at this is on ESPN.com. This is the chase grid. This is how they would enter the chase. My man Jeff Gordon in 11th. It's almost a reflection of it almost be like power rankings of drivers.
Yeah.
With 16th being those guys they run about there every week.
Yeah. Corey, if you look at the cutoff point, you got a lot of big names out of the chase right now that aren't even really close to that cutoff. You look down, you see Tony Stewart and Larson's in 22nd, Miffles in 21st. Who do you think has the best chance out there maybe to get them a win and bump themselves up, lock them in? That's not so close to that cutoff.
Carl Edwards.
Well, he's close to the cutoff.
But you said
I thought you meant anybody below the cutoff.
I said that's not close to it. That's maybe.
Oh God, what's close? Like define that.
The way I was looking at it is from 17th through 30th, because to me, I think the cutoff is if you win and are within the top 30 in points and attempt a lot of races, you are still eligible for the chase.
But nobody. nobody in that group's winning a race. I mean, if we're excluding Carroll, like AJ can get one at the Glen or something. That's about it. Nobody else is getting snipped. They might not even get top 10 out of that whole group.
They've got a few there.
I mean,
With the exception of David Gilliland.
Well, I mean, I think Biffle might could steal one.
Where?
Like a Michigan or something. Maybe. It's a stretch because I
mean, welcome to 2015.
I know. Maybe
You'd have to have jetpacks to that thing.
I think Larson could get one. And bum himself up because I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to point his way in. I think he's going to need a win.
Yeah,
but I think he could do it.
Knowing Tony Stewart's luck, it would be crazy for him to be like sitting 30th in points right now and steal one. You literally have to steal one. I mean, Tony, during a pit strategy fiasco.
Tony can. I mean, you watch for Tony come. Maybe July 4th race at Daytona. He's always historically good there, especially during the summer months. He could go get him one at Daytona.
That's very interesting you pointed that out. I forgot about him coming on, during the summer.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, we took this All-Star weekend to kind of take a breath and see what the points look like so far. It's pretty much, in my opinion, a telltale sign of how things have been going, and are probably going to go on until, like you said, maybe the halfway point of the year, when we'll take another look at the points heading into the final stretch before the actual chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to our mailbag question from a listener, a.k.a. Big Country, or Big County, says... reading the question here. We're going to have to reword this because this is a little hard to read. So basically, I want to know, what do you guys think about the Rainbow Warrior coming on Fox Sports saying that Jimmie Johnson is the best driver that ever lived? Everyone knows the 24 might as well go sit in the stands because he can't touch the 48. And I'm glad to hear him finally admit it. Anybody that pulls for Gordon probably wears a fanny pack and takes milk baths. Thanks. Big fan of the show, Big County. Well, Big County, since you are such an avid listener of the Tom Clark Weekly Speed Report, let me just tell you this. I think what you're referring to is they did an interview with Jeff Gordon, and they kind of asked who was the best that he raced against, and he said he couldn't really pick a list, and I think the first person that he mentioned was Jimmie Johnson. He said you'd have to throw Earnhardt in there, Earnhardt Sr. and others, but I don't think the answer that he gave was saying that I think Jimmie Johnson is the best ever. It was just, I'm sure a lot of that has to do with him being recently a teammate and things like that. Ask him this question 15 years ago, his answer would probably be something different. Everyone knows that, he might as well sit in the stands because he can't touch the 48. For you, Mr. Big County, I don't think that's even... what do you mean he can't touch the 48? For the last few years, I've been glad that Jeff Gordon has been able to at least keep a 20-win gap between Jeff Gordon's total win count and Jimmie Johnson's total win count. It's been about 20 races difference for almost a large part of a decade now. Like I said, I don't think he admitted that he was the 48 was better than the 24. And anybody that pulls for Gordon wears a fanny pack. Mr. Big County, I have seen some people wear fanny packs that happen to be Jeff Gordon fans. And to admit it to you, I think I have worn one only to keep my insulin, things I need to keep me alive in. And taking milk baths. I don't think anybody would want to hang around you afterwards, except for maybe some cats. Because if you actually got out in the sun and let that milk bake a little bit, you'd be smelling pretty ripe.
Put some Hershey's in there and have a chocolate milk bath.
But thanks for your question anyway, Mr. Big County. Tell your friends and tell them to write us back.
Let's just keep in mind that Gordon still is part owner of the 48 team, and
he probably didn't care that he won all those championships.
In a way, he's the one who helped give Jimmie the ride. So
exactly. And I wish I had a time machine now to tell Jeff that's a bad idea. Anyway, we digress to our green-white checkered questions for the week, and we go to Mr. Jacobs for those.
The green flag question this week is who's your winner for the All-Star race, since we're not doing fantasy picks this week, Tom?
I'm going to say, since we've talked about him, I could see him winning a race like this. I will say Kyle Larson.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it won't have any real effect in the chase. It's just like a asterisk next to your name.
Okay.
Until he retires, I'll think Jimmie Johnson's going to win every race at Charlotte ever.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be Harvick or Johnson. And my dark horse pick, it's weird saying he's a dark horse, but Gordon being his last full-time season All-Star race.
I would love to see that.
I'll throw that. Well, we're going to continue with the All-Star themed questions with our green-white checker. And our white flag question is going to be thoughts on the showdown being moved to Friday instead of before the race on Saturday.
I think, personally, having been in the All-Star race only 2 or 3 times now, I think it's a good idea. Because it's kind of like those guys that show up for the showdown. If those guys lost or wrecked their car in the showdown, you could look down in the infield and their hauler was already backing out of its parking space, heading back to wherever their shop was in and around the Charlotte area. So I think it's good because it kind of separates the literal all-stars and the spoilers, I guess you could say. It kind of helps those guys that are in the showdown focus on that race only at that period in time, rather than, well, if I finish in the top 2, I get a chance at the All-Star race. But I also have to be thinking ahead of when the sun goes down, and usually those guys that we have seen rare occasions, but those guys that transfer in usually are no factor in the All-Star race. So I think it's a good idea.
But I think it's a total rip-off of your Saturday ticket, because you buy a ticket for the All-Star race and you get to see 2 races. Traditionally, you get to see the Open or the Showdown, whatever it was called in whatever era, and then you get to see the big show. And that's just kind of like a little more bang for your buck. You know what I mean? And now now you don't get I'm sure that they didn't reduce the ticket prices. I'm sure that didn't happen.
No. And I mean, I agree with you. And I think it's good to have the crowd that's going to be there for the All-Star race there, because they always come to watch the showdown. I think it's good support for those guys.
True.
That's true. And I'll speak from a fan's point of view. A few years back when I went with Corey and a few other guys, we had never had the chance to see Earnhardt Jr. win in person, and he won the showdown. If it was on Friday night, we would have only been able to go to the Saturday night. We would have missed that. And that gives people a chance to see these lower guys, because where you get to see everybody fighting for the million in the All-Star race, these guys are doing the same thing just to even get in the race. And I think it's a good one-night spectacle.
That's good. I respect your opinions, and I'm sure maybe they're just experimenting. They're just kind of testing the waters to see what this does.
Yeah. Well, our checker flag question earlier in the week, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was asked this question, and I said I'm going to pose it to the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Your Mount Rushmore of drivers.
My personal Mount Rushmore of drivers, like personal.
Well, I mean, if you were going to make a Mount Rushmore, who would your 4 drivers be that, would be, I mean, not your 4 favorite drivers, the 4 that you think have been the most impactful to the sport?
See, I was going to kind of go with favorites now, most impactful to the sport. Can I give you 2 sets of Mount Rushmores?
Sure.
And I'm not going to explain why.
Just do what you got to do.
Okay, so here's my Mount Rushmore of favorites. Jeff Gordon being number 1. David Pearson being number 2. Cale Yarborough being number 3. And probably Buck Baker being number 4. Except for Jeff Gordon, but those other 3 drivers I think were men, like real hardy men behind the wheel. So those are my favorites. My Mount Rushmore of actual impact in the sport is going to still include Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Sr., Richard Petty, and Bobby Allison. I could spend all day doing it, but to me they've had impacts in the sport at different eras that were quintessential to the success of the sport.
Okay. Corey?
Is it 4 or 5? Okay, so it's going to be Junior Johnson, Richard Petty, Dale Sr. And it's either Jeff Gordon or Jimmie Johnson, one of the two. I don't know who the fourth one is. I'll let the guy who's carving the thing do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt are your given. My third, my third and my fourth. I've had a big toss up between Bobby Allison or Darrell Waltrip. I really flip flop back and forth between, and then I'm with Corey, Jeff Gordon, Jimmie Johnson. If I had to do it right now and give an answer, I would say Allison and Gordon. But I mean, I want to wait and see what Jimmy's numbers look like, because I mean, he already has more championships. I know, I'm sorry, Tom, but it really is. It's almost like you got to do like half of Jeff's face and half of Jimmy's face on him. But I guess if I had to go, it'd be Petty, Earnhardt, Allison, Gordon.
Good. I'm glad you didn't go with Waltrip there, because nobody thinks that great of a guy that talks so good about himself all the time.
Yeah.
And nothing to knock on him now, but I don't think I could be a fan of his back in the day. Yeah, we have some loudmouth drivers now, but not like Babe Ruth calling shots, like.
Certainly Cale and Junior Johnson and those guys, maybe a Ned Jarrett or something, they're definitely honorable mentions in the talks. But
how about this? Well, I'll throw this out to our fans. Email us at tcwspeedreport@gmail.com your personal list of if you were to build a Mount Rushmore of drivers, and we would just like to take a look at that and
we'll talk about it next week.
Next week,
for sure.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our SpongeBob SquarePants 400 at Kansas Speedway review. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter handle at TCW Speed Report. Email us your questions at tcwspeedreport@gmail.com. And be sure to like the newly updated Tom Clark Weekly Speed Report Facebook page. This is your host, Tom Clark, signing out.